So in my last video, I mentioned that I have autism and that I'm autistic, and I wasn't lying to you guys. I actually am autistic, and I want to give a little bit of a story as to how I got my diagnosis and what it's like to be autistic, and kind of how I've experienced life and what difficulties I have. So let's give a little history first. So first things first. I'm 21 years old. I got diagnosed with autism at around the age of 5, I believe. It was either 4 or 5. I can't remember the exact age, but I know it was definitely around that time. It was around 3 to 5-ish. I think it was when I was 5. I'm very certain in my memory it was when I was 5 I was diagnosed with autism. However, before I was diagnosed with autism, I was kind of classed as a bit of a troublemaker. I'd always constantly get in trouble, and I would always get sent to the head teacher's office, get sent home, you know what, like typical, nuisance stuff. And I remember one time I got sent to the head teacher's office, and like a guest was around, like a guest, speaking to the head teacher, and he asked me this simple question. It's like, why are you always getting in trouble? And I think my response was, I don't know. I don't know. When you are, let's just say this, and I'll say this now before we even get on further, but when you're not diagnosed, the whole world looks at you different. When you're not diagnosed, you are seen as a troublemaker, you're seen as a nuisance, you're seen as a menace. However, once you get diagnosed, people do a whole, 180 on you, and it's like, oh no, he's just misunderstood, he's autistic, he doesn't understand social cues, and it's just like, it's really annoying. As you can tell, a part of autism that I don't like is when people treat you like you're less than you are. And what I mean by that is when people speak to you in that, that tone of voice, which they don't speak to anyone else, but they just speak to you in that voice because you're autistic. Or, people treat you as like a, I don't know, treat you as like a baby almost, because oh, you can't do one or two things right, or you can't read social cues correctly. Anyway, back to it. So I was constantly getting in trouble. I don't remember the exact details, but I know I went to this place where they had me constantly tested for autism and other disabilities or special needs. I consider it a disability. You could consider it as special needs, whatever. However, after a while of testing, they confirmed to my parents that I was autistic. And the way my parents have always described autism to me is that a part of my brain doesn't work. And I guess while they're correct in a way of that, I think a better way to describe autism is some things take me longer to understand than others, while some things it might take me for my whole life to understand. One of those things for me is social cues. Social cues is something that I've always kind of struggled with, and I kind of hate it when you're talking to somebody, you don't really know what they're thinking. I can read people most of the time. I can tell if somebody wants to talk to me or somebody doesn't want to talk to me. However, I would personally prefer, if you are a friend of mine, I would personally prefer, and if I'm doing something wrong, I'd personally prefer if you tell me it direct. Yes, it'll probably hurt, but I'd rather find out direct than try to play games. You get what I mean? I hope you do anyway. But anyway, back to it. So once I was diagnosed with autism, my school did a whole 180 on me, basically. Instead of, constantly kicking me out and constantly causing me to go see a head teacher, no, instead they got me a TA, they got me a teacher's assistant, and they were a lot more patient and, caring, and a lot more, telling me, hey, this isn't right, you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. There was one point in year 3, which I don't know what grade that is. That might be I don't know. I'm just basing it off UK stuff. So in year 3, I went to 2 separate primary schools at the same time. I obviously went to my main primary school, but then I went to a secondary primary school, which that secondary primary school did the whole disability, they had a better disability team, and because of that, I was basically kind of like a transfer student. Well, not really like a transfer student, but I was basically living a double life, if you get what I mean. I had two school kits basically, and I went to 2 different schools. Obviously, I went to that other school 4 days a week, or I think I started year 2 actually, and then it ended year 3, and then towards the latter half of year 3, the days would reduce. So instead of going Monday to Thursday, or no, it was Tuesday to Friday, it would be Wednesday to Friday, then it'd be Thursday to Friday, and then it would just be Fridays. And I remember one time, I don't know why I remember this, so I don't know why I mentioned it, because it's just cool, I guess, or just cool, funny, whatever, There was one time where, I remember it now. There was one time where my main primary school were doing a school disco. However, my secondary primary school were going to the park, and I really liked going to the park. However, I ended up going to that school disco. And honestly, I'm so glad I went to that school disco instead of going to the park, because the school disco was just fun. And like I say, park, you can go park anytime now. Oh, well, I can't now because I'm 21. If I went to the park, I'd look like a creep. No thank you. But, yeah. Anyway, fast forward to secondary school. At secondary school, my secondary school was literally chosen because I was autistic. I didn't have a matter, of course, in what secondary school I went to. I actually wanted to go to one nearby where I live. However, because it had no SEN department, Special Education Needs department, if you don't know what that means. I think that's what it means. I might be right. I had to go to this different secondary school, which involved that, and because of that, I struggled a lot. I could talk a lot about my secondary school. Secondary school is generally, like, I would consider secondary school as the worst part of my life. Primary school was brilliant. College/uni's been great as well. But secondary school I would consider as the worst part of my life. And in terms of being autistic as well, it was very difficult. And I think this is why I kind of like struggled for a few years with like social cues and such. Because, well, I'm autistic. I'm not going to be able to read up on that. Anyway, and then obviously in college, I did have a teacher assistant for the first year or two. But then afterwards, I just didn't have one. And I haven't needed to have one since, to be honest. Now let's talk a little about my autism. I've gave you my history on it. Talk about how it feels for me. So autism for me is kind of like, I struggle with things. And the issue I have is, I know what problems there are, but unfortunately, like mentally I know what problems there are, but unfortunately I feel like sometimes with my autism it's kind of impossible to solve those issues. Like, for example, a big issue I had with my autism for a while is I had a just overall difficulty speaking to people. And while that issue isn't fully resolved, and I'm still struggling from time to time, I'm definitely a lot better now than I was 3 years ago, than I was 2 years ago, than I was last year. This time last year I was still pretty bad. I would say Discord definitely played a part in that as well. Just, you know, me growing my confidence, talking to random people definitely helped. But also just, you know, just opening myself up more to other people I think helped as well. But okay, let's say me and you get into a conversation, right? And we're talking and you're showing me body language that you don't want me to talk to you anymore. I'm going to be honest with you. I probably won't be able to read on that. What you'll probably have to do is you'll probably have to just tell me straight up you want the conversation to end. Because I'm not very good at reading, you know, like social cues. I'm not very good at reading body language. Like, let's say if somebody had a crush on me, right? And we were talking and they were showing signs that they had a crush on me. I would have no fucking clue if they did. Like, I preferably, I would prefer, if, you know, if you just came up to me and told me, like, hey, I like you, do you want to go on a date? Because that just works a lot better for me than, because then that just allows my brain to set up, you know, it in my mind, ready, okay, this day I'm going on a date. Something else what I do with my autism, and my friends can actually, confirm this as well. I will often repeat stuff and repeat my plans constantly. This is just so I have my plans basically in place. So for example, let's say tomorrow I'm going out and I need to do this and I need to do that. I'll constantly repeat that. I'll be like, okay, so tomorrow I need to wake up at a certain time. I need to have a shower. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to brush my teeth. I need to go out, meet my friends, do this, X, Y, Z. This for me, while it may annoy some people around me, this for me just allows me to keep myself in check and keep myself kind of knowing what I'm doing. For example, I will often, something I'll do as well is I'll constantly repeat, okay, today I need to make a video. So I need to record the audio, get that done, decide what idea I want to do first before I even dare record the audio. Record the audio, get the gameplay, and then edit it all together, ready for the next day to upload it. And I will constantly remind myself of that because I don't want to forget. Because if I forget, well, I'm not going to be able to, you know. I just, like I say, because my brain lives on a schedule constantly, I just don't like days where I'm kind of doing nothing. And in the past, I didn't mind it. But now that I'm a lot more open and I'm doing a lot more stuff with my life, I don't like days where I'm doing nothing. I like to have a schedule, just, okay, I'm doing this day, I'm doing this that day. It's probably like my biggest autism thing. And I guess another thing as well, I guess it's like, maybe this is something I've discovered with every autistic person, but every autistic person has at least one hyperfixation. Something that they hyperfixate all over. Some people it's birds, some people it's cars, Lego, you know what. For me, it's Call of Duty Zombies. Yes, my hyperfixation is on the game series Call of Duty Zombies. I'm deeply in love with this series, and I just love to find out so much more about it, so much more that people wouldn't know. Like, if you came up to me and you started talking to me about, like, COD Zombies, I could honestly talk to you for the next hour or so about COD Zombies, because I just love the series. Yeah, the series goes through shit points, but I generally love the series, and I can just talk so much about it. I know I'm not the only one that has that hyperfixation as well. I'm very certain other autistic people do as well. But yeah, like, hyperfixations are definitely one of the core aspects of autism for sure. Autism is really cool because if you meet people who are autistic, I'm telling you this right now, no offense to neurodivergent people, but people that have autism are generally some of the most cool people I've ever met. Now, neurodivergent people are also cool as well. I have a few friends who aren't who aren't like autistic, who don't have a disability, and they're cool. Like, I appreciate spending time with them. But when I'm hanging out with 3 or 4 people and we're all autistic, it's generally just at the end of the day it ends up becoming a nerd fest. But I love just talking to them because it's just so interesting. It's so interesting to get their just viewpoint, or just, you know, talk to autistic people. You know, it's great. Something else I love about autism as well is I just love, like, I don't know if people can do this as well. I think I do this quite a lot. This might just be a general thing, but for me, I can kind of visualize music in a sense. Like, I can create like something already in zone for like a song. Like, okay, this is how the song's just gonna go and stuff. And I do it for almost every song. It's incredible. But yeah, like, hyperfixation, just interacting with other autistic people is just great. Some of the things I don't like about being autistic, of course, is, I mean, the obvious one where people kind of speak down to you, like belittle you. There you go, that's the word, belittle. I don't like that because it just means that, like, they don't really think of me as much. They just think of me as a, not a statistic, but just as a thing, basically. This is majorly noticeable on the internet. I've noticed the internet generally hates autistic people. And I mean, it's not just the internet, it's the governments as well. The UK government have literally put something in stone where if you have a heart attack or something, unless you've, like, basically every person with a disability has been listed as do not resuscitate upon them having a heart attack or a stroke. And this is something that I need to do as well. I need to enable it I need to put it back on so they do resuscitate me in the scenario of that. And it's just very simple. They just want to kill people with disabilities. That's literally what the UK government want to do. They just want to do that by doing something like that. And it just sucks. It just sucks to kind of feel like you aren't really... You're just a number, almost. Like, it really sucks. But of course, like, you could let that shit get to you, and sometimes it does get to me. But ultimately, like, this is just a message to everybody who's autistic. You're special, you're fucking unique, alright? You're a lot more unique than the normal people, right? The normal, non-disabled people. Those people are great too, like, everybody's special, unique. But if you're autistic, if you're disabled, or special needed, you're fucking cool, you're unique as well. Like, super unique, like, you know, top 2, top 3 unique? Yeah, for sure. And my last case I'm going to talk about in terms of autism is the use of the R word, aka retard. Now, me personally, I actually don't mind people using the word. I think it's fine. But of course, if you speak to various autistic people, or even various disabled people, they aren't going to like the use of the word. I mean, there's going to be some people who don't give a fuck, like myself, but there's going to be some people who don't like the use of the word. My best opinion for that, if you are just like a neurodivergent person, neurodivergent, I believe, if I'm correct, is just somebody who's, you know, somebody who's just classified as just normal, doesn't really have any disabilities or anything. If you're like just a normal person, somebody that doesn't have disabilities, I would just ask the person who's disabled if it's okay if you using that word. Because if it's okay if you use that word around them, then you'll be fine, right? You'll be a-okay, it's all cool. Me personally, you could use the word around me and I wouldn't get butthurt or upset. Like, generally I just wouldn't care. I'd probably laugh, to be honest. But I understand it's not the case for every autistic person. I know some people who just don't like the word. And look, if you're disabled, you can use the word. You could use the word. Look, I'm autistic, but I'm fucking retarded at the same time. So, you know what it is. Anyway, I think I'm going to leave that as my final discussion on just autism and stuff like that. I love being autistic, and I wouldn't change it any other way, because I feel like my personality and who I am would be lost if my autism was removed. However, there are some aspects that I really wish, and maybe I could go into further episodes about it, because it's something I would love to talk about. I'd love to talk about my autism and just how it affects me pretty often. But it's something that, like, I would love. I just wish more people understood autistic people, you know. And I know it's hard. It's very difficult. If you're not autistic, if you're not disabled, it's very difficult to understand, because it's different case by case scenario. But of course, it's life. It's whatever. So you just kind of gotta focus on yourself and focus on the people that around you that you care about and care about you. And like I say, for myself, I've got a good support circle. I've got great friends, great family. And of course, I can go to them if I have any issues in terms of autism, but anything else. And I highly advise you all do the same as well, because trust me, having people around you is generally the best. Anyway, that's about it for now. I'm going to leave you lot there. I'll see you Muppets in the next video. Peace.